Now, before we start using it, what is Sequelize actually? Sequelize is a third-party package. To be precise, it's an object relational mapping library. And this is a pretty long name, which simply means it does all the heavy lifting, all the SQL code behind the scenes for us, and maps it into JavaScript objects with convenience methods, which we can call to execute that behind the scenes SQL code, so that we never have to write SQL code on our own. It works like this. We got our object, let's say a user, with a name, age, email, and password. But of course, this can be anything. Could be a product, whatever you need. And this is mapped to a database table by Sequelize. So it automatically creates that table for us even. It automatically sets up relations and tables even for us. It does all that. And when we create a new user, for example, we simply call a method on that user JavaScript object, and Sequelize executes the SQL query or the SQL command that is required. So instead of writing this on our own, we simply create a JavaScript object and work with that. And here would be one example using Sequelize to create a new user, which would behind the scenes execute the SQL code we don't have to write. Sequelize offers us the models to work with our database, as I showed you on the last slide. And it allows us to define such models, so basically define which data makes up a model and therefore which data will be saved in a database. We can then instantiate these models, so these classes, so to say. We can execute their constructor functions or use utility methods to create, let's say, a new user object based on that model. So we have a connection here. And we can then run queries on that. That could be that we save a new user, but it could also be that we find all users as an example. And here again, this always relates back to our model, which we define with Sequelize. And we can also associate our models. For example, we could associate our user model to a product model. So this is what Sequelize does. But of course, we don't just want to learn that in theory, we want to see that in practice. So let's add Sequelize to our project and let's slowly integrate it to manage our products and our cart and so on through Sequelize.